Well, sometimes we call coaching a calling. Now, there are lots of professions that have a calling to them. It's somebody who feels something deep inside that they are called to do. That's part of their, what we call spiritual DNA. It's something that they must do because it's part of who they are and why they're here on this earth.
What keeps your passion, what fuels your passion to continue to actually let it flow, and still you are still doing coaching, you are still teaching coaching, you are still training coaching as of today? Hello and welcome to MCC Talk, a podcast series where we explore the heart, the soul, and the impact of coaching from the world's most inspiring coaches. I'm your host, Đoàn Huỳnh Vân Anh. I'm the first ICF Master Certified Coach in Vietnam. In this episode, we have the privilege of sitting with a true pioneer, someone whose presence is did shape and transform individual lives and helps laying the foundation of coaching profession in the world. Our guest today is a coach who is often referred to as the mother of coaching. She coached since 1974. She's an ICF Master Certified Coach. She's a global trainer, and she's the author of 20 book titles, including the bestseller, If Life is a Game, These Are the Rules. Through her work with MMS Worldwide Institute and over 5 decades of transformational leadership, she has trained thousands of coaches and touched countless lives with her wisdom, her presence, and her unwavering belief in the power of human potential. So settle in, you are about to hear from one of the greats. Welcome, Dr. Chérie Carter-Scott to MCC Talk.
Thank you, Van An. I'm delighted to be here with you. It's a pleasure and a privilege.
It is such an honor to have you here with us today. And you have been called the mother of coaching. And I have to say, it's a title that feels so fitting, so right for you, since you've been doing this work since long before coaching was even called coaching. And your passion, your presence, and your wisdom still feel, to be honest, still feel very fresh and very alive with me whenever I miss you and when I was taught by you since 2015. To those who haven't heard about you yet, can you share a little bit about yourself and maybe some keywords about you that people will actually see who you are right now in this moment with us in this podcast?
Well, sometimes we call coaching a calling. Now, there are lots of professions that have a calling to them. Could be a firefighter, could be a person who's in charge of law enforcement, could be a teacher. It's somebody who feels something deep inside that they are called to do. That's part of their, what we call spiritual DNA. It's something that they must do because it's part of who they are and why they're here on this earth. So I discovered my calling quite by accident because my mother died when I was 20. My father got remarried, sold our properties in the United States, moved to Florida, and I was at university at the time, and there was no home to go home to. So I had a very urgent wake-up call that said, you've got to figure this thing out. What was this thing? This was life. I had to figure out what I was doing here, where I was going, and what the purpose of my life was. And I didn't know because I really wasn't trained or taught to do anything in particular. And the only things that I really resonated with, my parents were dead set against. So I was floundering at the age of 20, trying to figure out my purpose, my passion, my direction, my power, and I didn't know. I asked God, would you please send me a message? Tell me some way, somehow, what I am here to do and what are my talents? What do I have to offer? Got a phone call from a friend who asked me if I'd help him with his business. I thought it was kind of curious because I didn't major in business and didn't really know much about business at all. So I was honest with him and I told him the truth. And I said, I'm trying to find the purpose of my life. I don't know much about business. And thank you for the compliment. I appreciate your call, but I'm not the one. Called a second time. Second time I said, well, that's interesting. I thought we had this conversation. And he said, well, we did, but I'm serious. I really do want you to help me about my business. And I said, well, there are people who do that for a living, and I'm not one of them. So why don't you call one of those talented, qualified people and ask them to help you with your business? End of call. A few weeks later, he called a third time. Now, anytime anything happens three times, I have to stop, look, and listen because it's meaningful that it's a three. So I finally said to him, Lloyd, why are you calling me? And he said, well, that's simple. I trust you. And I said, I'm flattered that you trust me, but I don't know anything. I really don't know anything about business. And specifically, I don't know anything about your business. He looked at me and he said, that could come in handy. I didn't know what he meant, but I responded, look, if you want to pay me your hard-earned money, knowing full well that I know nothing, I'm willing to accept. And he was my first client. And it was in that coaching assignment with him that I had the realization, like a light bulb over my head, that said, please send me a message. Let me know what my talents are, my gifts, what I have to offer people. And right there, it was in front of me as if he had been sent.
That's a very inspiring story of how everything started. But I noticed in my sense of feeling what you have just shared, I feel like there was trust between two friends. And in coaching core competency, cultivating trust and safety is a core competency. The trust was already there. Then when he asked you for supporting him, when he asked you to support him, to help him, it was like, it's the next step that he wanted to do. And you listened to your message. You listen to your messages inside. You listen to your inner self. And then you respond to whatever it is that was given and offered to you by them, which represented by his reaching out, his asking you for support. That's a very, very interesting and very inspiring element in your story of how everything started as your call. Thank you for sharing them.
I didn't want to misrepresent myself to him as if I was a business consultant or that I knew a lot about business, because that would have felt unethical. And in the coaching process, it's very rooted in telling the truth, in being honest, in not pretending that we're something that we aren't. Even in the middle of a coaching session, if I don't understand something, if there's a word the person uses or something that I think, I don't know what that means, I have to speak it out because I can't sit talking to myself about it. I have to clear the space for the clear communication between the two of us.
That's what we from LCV we call it responsible vulnerability. As in us, we coaches, we are vulnerable, but with responsibility. If we don't know something, we ask. If we are curious about something, we ask. And thank you for sharing that. It's a very inspiring pioneer stories and pioneer sessions that we might have not heard if we are not meeting you here today. However, when it comes to credentials, I know that you did coaching and you coached when coaching was not even called coaching, because you only I'm asking questions and that's it. However, years later, when it was called coaching, when you actually achieve the credential of ICF Master Certified Coach, some might think that, okay, this is the highest credential that's ever achieved by a coach. But what keeps your passion, what fuels your passion to continue to actually let it flow, and still you are still doing coaching, you are still teaching coaching, you are still training coaching as of today? What keeps that going?
Every session is unique. It's unique with the person. It's unique with the subject matter. It's unique in the moment in time or the evolution of that person. So no two sessions are exactly alike. So I don't ever say to myself, oh, it's a relationship session. Oh, it's a session about moving, relocating to another place. Oh, it's a session about life purpose. I never say that. I always am present with the person, asking my client, what do you want to focus on today? And what would you like to take away with you from our session? And is it meaningful to you or significant or important? And tell me how important. So those questions that I ask are geared to finding out our GPS for our session. It's looking at the session with the client in partnership and focusing on our destination. So there are very few conversations in life where you look at your end result at the beginning of the conversation, but coaching is one of them.
Which means the curiosity is still there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Always there. And if it weren't there, I'd have to stop, because curiosity is so much a cornerstone of the coaching process.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And with that, that's the part, the elements from coaching clients. How about you yourself? As in, how do you develop yourself further to still be in the profession after so many years?
Okay, so there are several answers to that question. One that's more global and one that's very specific. The global answer is that I live the process. What does that mean? It means that the principles that we use in coaching, I live every day. I live it with my mate, partner, husband. I live those principles with my family members. I live those principles with my team, my staff, my associates, my colleagues, my friends. I live them. And if people don't live them and don't abide by them or not a part of them, they're on an outer circle as opposed to an inner circle. So that's the global answer. I live the process, which means that the shift from everyday life into a coaching session is not a radical change. I don't have to do a huge amount of preparation in order to get ready for the session. The second answer is I check in with myself. What does that mean? It means that I ask myself, how am I today? How am I feeling? How is my body? My thoughts, my emotions, my presence. Take some deep breaths. And I center myself to be able to be fully present with my client. And the third answer is that my relationship with myself is so central to my capacity to show up, be present, and to serve and support my client, that I must make certain that that relationship is intact, that I am honoring who I am, and that I'm listening to my messages. You and I know what messages are, but messages are similar. They're like a first cousin to intuition, but they're not the same. Because intuition can be like a premonition that something's going to happen or an insight, but a message is a kind of tap on the inner self about listening and paying attention to what is being revealed that I probably don't want to do. Maybe because it's irrational, illogical, unreasonable. Maybe because it's inconvenient. Maybe because it wasn't part of my plan. For whatever reason, I just don't want to do it. But the message persists. And when the message persists, like Lloyd calling me 3 times, when it persists, I have to stop, look, listen, and notice what it's asking me to do. There is one more. With the organization ICF, I am an assessor, and I've been doing it for 10 years now. And when I assess, I listen and read someone's submission of a session that they want to be evaluated in terms of their capacity to represent a level, whether it's associate certified coach, professional certified coach, or master certified coach. I do all 3 levels. In doing these, I keep my skills sharp because I have to relate what they're saying in the session as a coach and what they're not saying. If there's silence, if there's recapping, restating, summarizing. If they're actually offering something to the client in an unattached way, I have to listen very closely and keenly to what's happening so that I can be able to give feedback to this complete stranger who I will never meet and let them know where they are in the world of ICF and their capacity to coach and be considered a credentialed coach in the ICF world.
Oh, so let me rearrange what you shared just now. So first, living the process. Second, checking with yourself every day. Third, having a very good relationship with yourself. Fourth, listening to your messages. And fifth, you are an assessor and you sharpen your skill every day by assessing recording sessions from coaches around the world in different levels.
That's right. And those assessments, I would not necessarily think it, but they take anywhere between 90 minutes and 3 hours to do one assessment. It takes a long time to do it thoroughly and completely, and to know that you've given something to another person that's valuable, important, credible, and that you've done it thoroughly.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I'm a very new assessor myself. As in, I just recently got my MCC in 2022, and I've been an assessor for several files, several recording sessions. So I'm very certain that I will learn a lot from you about that. Yeah, and I was going to ask you about the heart of coaching, like for example, 3 or 4 key principles or values, but just now you share all.
Yeah. Well, one of the most important things to me in the coaching process is foundational, and it has to do with creating trust and safety. I think one of the reasons that that's so important to me is that I was raised in a very dysfunctional home where trust was pretty much non-existent and safety was critical. And so for me, at the heart of me and also the heart of coaching is this aspect of trust and safety. Part of it is confidentiality, of course. Part of it is safety, that I'm here for you and with you. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong. I'm here to support you in listening to your highest, best, and deepest self, your own truth, finding that and honoring that. And in doing so, I allow myself to be able to create this little bubble of trust and safety with each client in each moment. And even if they say, I don't know, I might say to them, for that be? Or I'm reverse roles and say, let's pretend that I'm you and you're me. What would you say to me to be able to help me know? Or I might say something kind of cheeky to them, which is, well, if you don't know, who does? Should we call someone? Should we ask them? Maybe somebody knows what you don't know. And then usually they'll get a little irritated and they'll start telling me what they do know. So lots of ways to be able to get at that place of they know. And for me, trust and safety is so critical. If you can't create an environment of trust and safety, you're probably never going to be a very impactful coach.
Yeah, so that's one of the hearts of coaching that we are mentioning, cultivating trust and safety, and keeping confidentiality. And what you just shared, I think I can take it as one of my tips for responding to I don't knows from my clients. Because yes, some of them, even though they enter a coaching session, they know fully that, okay, I'll be the one who have the answers for myself. The coach just sits there and asks me questions. But sometimes they tend to reach out to the coach and ask, what should I do? Or I don't know, please tell me. Yeah, yes. Those are very appropriate response to I don't know.
So the other part of the heart of coaching, also included in the mindset, is this being present.
Mm.
We live in an incredibly distracted world where things are moving quickly, whether it's motorcycles or scooters or cars or planes. They're moving quickly. People are moving quickly. Information is moving so rapidly across the internet and through cyberspace. We have to take a moment to become present. And when we become present, it means that we calm everything around us down, including calming our inner self inside. It's so important. And to imagine that you could go from a very intense meeting right into a coaching session is naive. You can't. You have to have that moment or a few moments to be able to connect with yourself, to calm down, to breathe, and to become fully present in that moment.
Yeah, being present. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I know that you have a book called Mainstream Mindfulness. That's mostly about being present in every aspect of our life, right?
That's right. And it's not easy to be present in every aspect. It's really not. As a matter of fact, if we're on a tight schedule, we might just gobble down our food. But in a session just yesterday, a client said to me, I have a client who wants to lose weight. And what should I say to her? And I said, well, maybe when you're considering the homework, you might offer the possibility of her keeping a food journal.
Mm.
What is a food journal? It's when you write down what you eat. But my added feature is not only what you eat, when you eat, and what you're feeling when you eat.
Mm.
Because eating when you're hungry is appropriate. We all have an appetite and we have to eat to stay alive. But do you eat when you're bored? Do you eat when you're lonely? Do you eat when you're happy? Do you eat when you're celebrating? Do you eat when you're wishing you were someplace else? So the question is not just what you eat, but when you eat and what you're feeling right before you eat. Is it hunger? And so I often say to people, when you reach for a bag of nuts or chips or a snack, ask yourself, am I hungry? If the answer is no, put the chips and the snack back and wait until you're actually hungry before you eat.
With that examples, you mentioned a lot about feelings. How do you think feelings contributes to a coach being?
I believe that we as coaches need to connect with our feelings. We live in a world that's mostly oriented from the neck up. And historically, in the last century at least, feelings were only taken into consideration in the area of theater or therapy, but they weren't necessarily included in business. It was mostly through the COVID experience that people started really feeling lonely, feeling left out, feeling disconnected, feeling lost, lots of feelings. But those feelings had been pressed down or suppressed for a very long time. So actually, COVID did contribute to many people's lives in having them connect to their feelings. As coaches, our feelings are critical because we do ask our client from time to time, what are you feeling right now? We ask them about the feeling because coaching is not just a mental exercise. It includes the entire person. And when you're coaching the whole person, you want to include the feelings because the feelings give you a reading, a kind of barometric reading on whether that choice that I'm considering making is really right or not. So we want to check in with the thoughts, of course, but also the feelings at each juncture along the journey.
At the end of the day, what we decide, what we choose, scientifically, biologically, mostly based on feelings. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And with that in mind, as in you always ask about feelings, you ask about how they feel, ask about how we feel, you feel as a coach, then can you share that an example that's allowed, as in the client allows us for you to share, allow you for you to share, like a very specific example of how feelings shape or transform the whole experience of that client.
Yeah. I was coaching, I have permission to share this story. I was coaching a man named Bernie Heiler, who was the head of the telephone company in the United States. It was a very large client. We had been coaching them for 14 years in various different divisions and departments, because every time there was an issue, they would say, go over here, or they'd say, go over there. And so they would send us to the different departments, divisions, and people who are having challenges, blockages, miscommunications, breakdowns. And Bernie was the president of GTE. So he was my client who I had worked with for several years. This one day, I remember it distinctly. He asked me if I would meet with him. And it was just the two of us, none of his direct reports, none of the other team members, just the two of us. And he looked at me and he said, I have something to tell you. And, the part of me inside went, uh-oh, what's he going to say? Am I fired, or is it over, or what's happened? He said, I've come to a realization. And I was noticing my own feelings at the time. What am I feeling? Maybe a little bit of concern, maybe a little fear. I said, tell me. He said, well, I've come to the realization that I don't want to be the head of this company. I don't want to be here anymore. This is a shrinking company because of the transformation that technology and telecommunications is going through. And I want to be with a growing company. I'm a grower. I want to grow a company. I don't want to shrink it. I'm in the wrong place. Took a deep breath. I swallowed and I said, how can I support you? And he said, well, next to my wife, you're the first person that I've told this to. I said, well, I'm honored. Thank you. He said, but I need to map out the plan of my exit strategy, because for me to stay would be a lack of integrity. I shared that I understood exactly what he was talking about, and that I was here to help him in any way I could to be able to make this the smoothest transition possible. My feelings and his feelings of coming forward and telling number two person after his wife, and my feelings of fear and trepidation, but then realizing I'm here to serve and support. That's my job. It's not about me. It's about my client. So my feelings and his feelings met together in some sort of space where, again, it created a deeper sense of trust and safety, a deeper sense of listening and empowering, which is so important to the client, because I'm sure as the president of a company who had led these people for many years into incredible success, he was now feeling like maybe I'm letting them down. Maybe I'm being rash. Maybe I'm acting too quickly. But I trusted him to know his own truth, and he trusted me to hold it in safety and in a sacred space. So it was both of our feelings that came together in that moment that allowed him to have his truth be respected, trusted, and honored.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm feeling moved by the connection that you just shared about you and that client. And somehow my mind drifted to moments where I have a very deep connection and bond with the clients that I'm having. It's about mutual feelings about the situation, about me and that client, about that client and in life. So thank you for sharing that. I think I get it somehow. Yeah. So which means that when you honor the client's feelings and you honor your feelings, and it all comes together, can support that client's journey. Yeah. Thank you. And with that, I want to ask a little bit more about your feelings, as in how do you think your feelings contributes to the whole journey of you being a coach?
In the early days, I was nervous because I didn't know if I could hurt someone by asking questions. I didn't know if I could do some damage. And it was a conversation that I had in Berkeley, California, where I met with a psychiatrist friend of mine named Bob. And I said, can I hurt people doing this? And he said, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm asking open-ended questions. He said, do you know the answers to them? And I said, no, they're not leading questions. They're just curious questions. And he said, well, are you prescribing anything to them? And I said, no, I'm not prescribing. He said, are you advising? Are you telling them what to do? Are you giving them a task list? I said, no, I'm not doing any of those. I'm asking questions to enable them to connect with their own answers and to support them in listening, trusting, and honoring those answers and moving forward in their lives. He said, you're not doing anything wrong. It can only help people continue to do what you're doing and trust it. And that was a very important meeting for me because I was young and I was wanting to do the right thing, not wanting to do anything that would harm anyone. And his words of wisdom, much older man than I, really helped me trust myself and trust my feelings and to be able to move forward on the path. Now, I will tell you one thing that's interesting. I've been on Oprah Winfrey a couple of different times. And one time I was in the green room, and it was before I was going to go on, and I was meditating. I was sitting quietly, I was breathing deeply, and I was just asking in my prayers, Lord, give me the right words to say. Give me the right insight. Allow me to remember that it's not about me, that it's about the message that I can bring forward to help people. Now, I was sitting there breathing and being calm and saying my prayer, and the door burst open and somebody came in and said, I've disturbed spirit. And I said, don't worry, spirit will be back. It's not a problem. And it was that moment that I got a good laugh out of it. And I said, thank you, Lord, for not letting me take myself too seriously and for allowing me to have a sense of humor.
Which means you actually acknowledge your feelings, tuning in, checking in, and respond appropriately to whatever that happens, right? After
yes.
That. Thank you.
Yeah.
Since feelings is the base like that, then I know for a fact that you continuously pursue your dreams, your wishes, whatever it is that you have, that you set your heart and mind in, and you will go and get it and go and achieve it. I've read your book, so I know that going to Egypt or going to be a producer of a musical, being a pilot and everything, all that, which means all those living the process with genuine feelings, listening to your inner self, listening to your messages, listening to your own feelings. Can you share more on the mindset of doing all that so other coaches can learn from?
We as coaches are here to empower. That's really the bottom line, empower our clients. And sometimes it means trusting themselves and listening and going for their dreams. That's not always easy. It's a stretch because a vision or a dream is something which doesn't yet exist. And going for something that doesn't exist yet means you're either a visionary or crazy. So to go for those dreams requires a lot of support and reinforcement to believe in them. Okay, so when I was in my late 40s, I got this message that had been a recurring message throughout my life. And it had been that I wanted to fly a plane. No one in my family had been into aviation. And the only planes that they flew on were, commercial aircraft going from point A to point B. But I wanted to fly in the cockpit, and I wanted to be holding onto the yoke, and I wanted to be the person actually flying the aircraft. But it wouldn't go away. I kept wanting it to go away. It's like, oh no, that's crazy. What if I can't keep track of the attitude and the altitude and the wind shear? And what if I can't? What if I can't? And I kept thinking of all the what if I can'ts, but I wasn't really thinking, what if I can? What if I really can fly? And it wouldn't go away. And that's one of the things that I say about messages is that they don't go away. They keep resurfacing. So there was a moment when it made sense for me to ask if my partner would take a flying lesson with me. And I said, Michael, would you like to take flying lessons with me? And he said, no, I get motion sick. I don't want to do that at all. So that was my first little setback, that if I'm going to do it, I've got to do it alone. And I wanted a buddy or a partner, or, someone to be able to share the experience with. There weren't any takers. It was just me. So I went to the school, signed up for a lesson, loved my first lesson, and I had 3 lessons, and then the school closed down. Second challenge. Now I have to find a new school, a new instructor. I have to find that in my spare time when I'm not doing all the other things I'm doing. Found a new school, found a new instructor. And it took me 10 and a half months to learn everything in the book, everything in the aircraft and all the maneuvers, everything in the computerized test online, everything for the oral exam, and to be able to really trust myself that I knew how to do this and that I could do it. So I had to take a cross-country solo over 50 nautical miles. I had to get in the plane by myself. I remember the first day that I was supposed to fly solo, and my instructor at the time, Dave, he said, okay, pull the plane over here. And he said, I'm going to get out of the plane now, and you're going to take off and do 3 touch and goes, and then you're going to come to a complete stop. I looked at him and I said, no, you're not. You get back in this plane right now. And he said, no, I'm not getting back in the plane. I said, seriously, I'm not ready. I know I'm not ready. And this is not time for you to leave. He said, I'm your instructor, and I know when you're ready. Chérie, trust me that you are ready, and you're going to do this right now. I'm getting out of the plane now. He got out and closed the door, and I sat there by myself. I thought, oh God, I never imagined that I would feel this terrified at this moment. So I decided to pray. I prayed to my angels. I prayed to God. I prayed to everyone, please let me do this. Let me not crash the plane. Let me not die at this moment. I did it. I'm here today. I completed it. And later on, he said to me, one of these days you're going to have to trust me as your instructor too. But it was one of those moments where the dream was there, the message was there. I wanted it. But when it came right down to it, I was scared that I wasn't enough, that I had to be, do, or have to make this dream of becoming a pilot become real. Well, it happened. Then my dear partner, who told me he got motion sickness, cured himself of that. He got his private pilot's license also. And together, we bought a plane and flew for 10 years together around the United States. And it was such a dream come true that it not only helped me believe in my dream and my message, it helped me believe in my clients' dreams and their messages, because I can't just ask people to follow their dreams and not follow my own. I have to be the living example of the person who's going for my dreams, whatever they happen to be, whether it's producing a musical or whether it's flying in a plane or whether it's becoming a scuba diver, anything. I have to trust my visions, dreams, and goals in order to be the very best MCC that I can be for my clients.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So coaches, pursue your dreams. When you pursue your dreams, you believe in clients' dreams. You believe in supporting them. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Shui. And once again, I know for a fact that in a lot of your books, you have mentioned here and there those spirits, that kind of spirit of pursuing our dreams, being courageous enough to actually believe in your own inner truth, your own inner self. We come to the last bit of our podcast today, and to be honest, I'm still very eager to listen to a lot more of your stories and your philosophy. We might have like 10 minutes left. With that, I really want to hear from you what you want to share to other coaches around the world, coaches in Vietnam, and future coaches who are considering coaching to be a profession.
I don't want to scare them with the idea that everybody has to become a private coach, a private pilot. You don't. You just have to be in trust with your own messages and your own dreams, not mine. Mm-hmm. I think probably the most important thing is your relationship with yourself. And most of us have not been educated to know that there is a relationship with ourselves. You know, we might have been raised to think of others first, or to care for others, or to think of others, or have concern for others, but we aren't necessarily geared to connecting with ourselves, at least in my generation. And so I think the relationship with yourself, especially as a coach, is critically important, because you need to be tuning into how you are. And tuning in means listening, and it means honoring, and it means trusting, and it also means taking action. So as I shared the story about becoming a pilot, and the excitement coupled with the fear, coupled with the do I, can I, is this possible? It really comes down to believing in ourselves as coaches, believing that we add value, believing that we can create that bubble of safety, that sanctuary with our client for them to be able to go deep, find their truth, and listen to it and honor it, with us being witness to whatever that is. Now, in the beginning of Transformational Life Coaching, which is a book about coaching, which you know really well, Ben, on, Chapter 1 is about your relationship with yourself. And it's a very important chapter, because you really can't focus on another person and the support of them until you have a very clean, clear, and honorable relationship with yourself. That's just how it works. And so your relationship with yourself, checking in about things. So just recently, where we live right now is Bangkok, and we had an earthquake. Now, the earthquake brought up a lot of feelings, and it was a very intense, big earthquake. And during the earthquake, everything shook, everything. And at one moment, I said to Michael, I said, we're having an earthquake. He said, come over here. And he held me tight. And we were inside of a door jam. And he said, I think we have to get out of here. We're on the 16th floor. Now, running down 16 flights of stairs with new knees and impaired hips was a bit of a challenge. We got to the bottom, but the aftermath of the earthquake was looking at stuff. Do we want to give it away? Do we want to throw it away? Or do we want to keep it? 3 choices. And really being honest with those choices is also like clearing out the clutter inside our brains, clearing out the clutter in our relationships, clearing out the clutter. Because if my relationship with myself is going to be crystal clear, I have to get rid of the clutter. It has to be silent between my ears. And I have to be able to monitor that and to take charge of that so that I don't walk around with a head full of clutter. So the earthquake has, again, served us in a way that we didn't even imagine by getting rid of clutter that we don't need, things that are just hanging around because at one point in time they were useful or valuable, or we liked them, or they were helpful, or got used to them. For whatever reason, we hadn't taken present inventory of our things and our clutter. So that relationship with ourselves, I think, is so, so important. And it has everything to do with relationships and things, but it also has to do with using coaching as a tool to be able to make certain that my relationship with myself is as clean and as clear as I'm able to deliver. And that is something that I monitor on a regular basis. It's also the first chapter of If Love is a Game, These Are the Rules. Your relationship with yourself is the central template from which all other relationships are formed. And that's how strongly I feel about it. Because if we don't have a relationship with ourselves, or we take it for granted, or we just operate like, yeah, I'm me. Some people take better care of their cars or their motorcycles than they do themselves. And so we really need to care for and about ourselves so that we can go the distance and so that we can be fully present with ourselves, with our loved ones, with our clients.
Thank you. Nurturing the relationship with yourself. Thank you for that wisdom. I've learned from you since 2015. I've been doing that. Sometimes I'm very good at it. Sometimes I'm not. But I always remember, as in, okay, this is where I turn back to. This is where I go back to, the relationship with myself. And that's what inspired me to live my life to the fullest, live the process, having my relationships, my career, my finance, my family, all that to be intact, to keep it going. I know everything is not perfect at this moment or any moment in our life, but at least I had the awareness of, okay, I'm keeping this going, the relationship with myself. Yeah, so thank you for that. And I believe that all our other coaches in Vietnam and other potential coaches out there, they will be inspired by this too. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, Dr. Chérie. Yeah, so we are at the end of our podcast. Thank you again for being here with us. And I really hope that your books will be read by a lot more audiences. I really hope that your courses, your program, your level 1, 2, and 3 programs, hosting online, hosting in other countries, will be attended, will be participated by a lot more potential coaches and leaders. At LCV, we are having the same thing in Vietnamese, and everything was taught by you. We learned a lot from you. We are carrying your torch to future generations of coaches and leaders who know how to coach people. Thank you again.
Thank you, Vanon and LCV, for everything you do every single day to help people that you help transform their lives to become better versions of themselves.
Thank you. So to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If this conversation sparked any interest or something in you, we'd love to hear from you, and offering you the power of our presence, the power of our purpose, and our coaching, our emotional intelligence programs, and we really love to hear from you. Until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and keep coaching from your heart. Thank you.